Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for coming, spending your very precious Thursday evening with me. I hope it is going to be worth your while, and if not, maybe a drink after. Can I just check first, how many people here in this room are lawyers? That you will admit to, yes, okay, lawyers. How many people in this room are mediators? Okay, that's quite a fair bit. That's quite a fair bit. How many people in this room have nothing to do with either lawyering or mediation? Cool. That's cool. Now I know who to talk to. I'm just kidding. Okay, that's fine. Thank you very much for that. First, I'd like to extend my thanks to Hong Kong University for inviting me to give this talk, and to thank them for their hospitality they have extended to myself and my wife. I feel like, every time you buy a product, there is a public service sort of warning on it. There's sort of like a warning label that goes on it. So I'd like to, can I give you a public service warning first? Is that all right? Is that all right? Yeah, okay. So the first public service warning is, if any of you have been in Singapore and you speak with Singaporeans, you know that Singaporeans have a tendency to speak very, very quickly. Right? So when we talk very fast, and it's quite bad because when we talk very fast, it sounds a little bit like this, and then we say many things, and then it's hard for you. So if I start getting excited and talking very, very fast, do me a favor, put up your hand and say, please slow down, or you can allow your eyes to glaze over and you can fall off your chair. I too will notice that. Okay, so either one works for me. I will try very, very hard to slow down. The second thing that I like to say to you as a public service warning is I have a problem. Okay, I have a problem. It's serious, Joanna, so don't laugh. It's fine. I'm not able to stay serious for an extended period of time. Okay, which means that I would like very much for our next hour together to be a bit fun. Is that all right? Yes, would anyone object? Like, would anyone stand up and leave the room because, my goodness, this is not going to be serious? Is that okay? Yes, yes. How many is fine with that? It's all good? Hands up, hands up, hands up. So there's some people who are not fine. No, everyone's fine with that. That's cool, that's very good. That's nice. Cool. With the introduction that Wendy has just given me, I suddenly feel, how many people in this room have watched Ip Man? Ip Man is a kung fu show. No one's watched Ip Man. Okay, so I suddenly feel with the that's right. I did watch it. After the introduction by Wendy, I suddenly feel I need to come out here and say, "Ngo you ta sap ko." Okay, I want to fight 10, but no, that's not what's going to happen. But as I was thinking about the things that I wanted to share with you tonight, I wanted to focus a fair bit on the multidisciplinary nature of mediation. And at one level, all of us as mediators, we know this. We draw from areas of psychology, we draw in areas of decision sciences. I mean, all this is not new. But as I have done research over time, looking at more and more things, I seem to find, maybe they're my hallucinations, but I seem to find connections between mediation and other more disparate things. And so I'd like to share some of those ideas with you this evening. The hope is not to tell you everything, because as I was preparing for my session tonight, and in fact, I want to thank HKSYU University for obviously touching up this photograph. I look better in this photograph than I actually look in real life. Thank you very much, Jay. That's not me. I need to say that's not me. That's not me, because no, it's not. Okay, but as I was looking at this title, and my wife said to me, "Oh, we're going to Hong Kong." I said, "Yes, we're going to Hong Kong." And she says, what are you going to talk about? And I went, no. And she says, "What?" I said, "Martial arts, mindfulness, meta model, and metaphor as it relates to mediation." And she goes, "Is anyone actually going to come for that?" And so thank you very much for coming, because I thought I'd be talking to an empty room. That's cool. I like that. I hope it'll be good. And so one of the things that I want to share with you is, and as I was preparing for this, I got kind of excited and nervous, but I got excited too. And the problem with being excited is there's so much I want to share with you, I'm afraid that I might not have the time to do it all. Yeah, okay. So I hope you would not mind if it's like a buffet. It's going to be a little tasting of things. I'm happy to take some questions at the end. and we'll see where that goes. All right. Two process points which I'd like to just sort of start out with. Number one is I'm terrible. I don't like to stand behind a rostrum, so I'm going to walk around a little bit. I've already done that without your permission. I'm sorry. Is that okay? Yes, 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 yes. The other thing is I refuse to torture you with death by PowerPoint. So there aren't going to be a lot of words on the PowerPoints. There'll be some, all right? But most of the content is going to be in this conversation that we're going to be having. Is that okay? Oh, I forgot one thing. I forgot one thing. Johannes, could you do me a favor? Could you just hold on to this for me? Just hold on to that. It's cool. No, just leave it there. It's cool. Just hold on to it. No, you can sit down. It's all right. Okay, just hold on to it. It's fine. I want it back. It's for later. It's for later. All right. So far so good. I'd like to spend today using martial arts, and I've had 30 years of experience in the martial arts. My wife and I co-run a martial arts school in Wing Chun in Singapore, but I'm a man of peace. That's why I mediate, right? But I like to use martial arts as an overarching theme for some of the things that we'll be talking about. Okay, and I'd like to start off with a metaphor. Let's see if technology will help me. So, they say that in the early days of humankind, our history and our teaching was all through stories, right? Writing came later. But verbal transmission of knowledge, verbal transmission of our history, our culture, our heritage was through stories. So I'd like to share with you a story, if I may, if I just start off with a story. Once upon a time, and you're probably wondering why there's a camel here. Once upon a time, there was a wise man riding through the desert on a camel. And he said to the camel, because if you ride through the desert for a long time on a camel, you start talking to the camel. You say to the camel, "It's really hot." And the camel said, because if you ride a long time in the desert with a camel, the camel replies. The camel said, "Yes, it is." And as they were riding through, they suddenly saw an encampment, and they thought to themselves, "Oh, maybe there's water there." Joanna's clearly likes that one. Maybe there's water there. So they started going towards the encampment. But as they got closer to the encampment, they began to hear the troubling sounds of conflict. They could hear raised voices. And as they got even closer, they could even see the glint of the sun on naked steel. And the man said to the camel, "I think we need to get there even faster." And the camel goes, "Yeah, okay." And then they go. And as he got to the encampment, what he saw was 3 men facing each other off with their swords drawn, about to come to blows. And the wise man said, wait, hang on a moment. What's going on? Well, it turns out these 3 men were brothers. And their father had just passed on. And the father had left his entire fortune to the 3 sons. In these shares, to the eldest son, half. To the second son, 1/3. To the last son, 1/9. Seems okay. I mean, maybe you can argue it's not fair, but it's sensible. The problem was the entire fortune consisted of 17 camels. Those of you who are mathematically inclined, you're doing your calculations right now. 17 divided by 2 doesn't quite work. 17 divided by 3 also doesn't quite work. 17 divided by 9 also doesn't quite work. So that's why they came to blows. The older son says, "I'm the eldest, I should get the extra one." The younger son says, "No, you have already got the largest share. We should get the extras." They even explored the solutions. Let's cut up the camels and divide them by weight. But that wasn't practical. So the wise man said, "Listen, let me see if I can help. I'm a mediator." And he said, "Listen, let me give you my camel. Now you have 18. 18 divided by 2 is 9. 18 divided by 3 is 6. 18 divided by 9 is 2. So the sons took away the camel, which added up to 17, and the wise man jumped onto his own camel and rode away into the sunset. Some of you might be wondering, what was that story about? That's okay, we'll come back to that. I promise you, we'll come back to that. But let's talk about martial arts. In the time that I've spent practicing martial arts, I've seen a lot of parallels between martial arts and conflict resolution, martial arts and mediation, martial arts and negotiation, ways in which we interact. And so I'd like to sort of share with you first some of what we call the conceptual distinctions that I notice, right? Now, it seems a little bit odd that I'm actually showing a Hong Kong audience Chinese words. I apologize. Okay, my Chinese is not very good, but most of you get that this is the Chinese character for martial, right? What interested me though, because a lot of the time people come to learn martial arts because they want to either defend themselves or they want to beat someone up. Okay, less so the second one, but sometimes. But here's the interesting thing: as I was exploring martial arts, I suddenly realized that martial arts is made up of two separate ideograms, right? And most of you know this. The first ideogram is a spear. Strangely, and not surprising because it's a martial art. But secondly, the next ideogram is to stop. At least one interpretation of the character is to stop. Then to the distinctions between the types of martial arts, and again we will see parallels between this now and how we choose to resolve conflict, right? For those, can I just check how many people in this room have some martial arts experience? Anyone? Nobody? Seriously? One person here. What do you do, ma'am? You do Tai Chi? Okay, we'll meet you outside later. No, just kidding. Just joking. Tai Chi is also quite peaceful. It's all cool. But martial arts, in the martial arts world, martial arts are divided into two separate sort of extremes, right? There's what we call the hard martial arts. And the hard martial arts is characterized generally by karate, for example, is an example of a hard martial art, right? Okay, if there are any karate practitioners in the room who disagree with me, let's have a drink and talk about it. Okay. The soft martial arts is characterized by a number of different things, one of which is, for example, Bagua. Okay. 8 trigrams palm is the English, I guess the closest English translation of it. Tai Chi is considered a soft martial art. Aikido, Hapkido, is also considered a soft martial art, right? Now the reason why I'm highlighting sort of like the differences in the martial arts to you is simply this. If we were to replace, this is where technology fails me. I shall have to tap my phone instead. If we were to replace the words hard with soft, with the words competitive and collaborative, you can begin to see some of the parallels between what hard martial arts are about and soft martial arts are about. Hard martial arts is about meeting force on force. It is about engaging in the conflict head on. Okay? Sometimes we refer to that as positional conflict resolution, right? Soft martial arts adopt a cooperative approach, is sometimes what people call it, or a collaborative approach, right? I'll talk a little bit more about the application of martial arts shortly, right? But for the moment, I just want to place some of those conceptual distinctions there. The third thing, and this is interesting because we start then beginning to look at mindset. So let me ask a question to, I'm just gonna ask Johannes a question. Simply, he's just right in my point of view. If my sentence, Johannes, I'm gonna ask you a question that sounds a bit strange. Okay, so I just need you to just chill with me on this. How do you know I exist? It's a tough question for evening on the Thursday. I get it. And maybe you haven't had enough drinks yet. I get that too. But how do you know I exist, Johannes? Just for example. You, right. Okay, so you can hear me. You can see me. You can hear me, right? That's what we're hearing so far, right? Okay. How else do you know I exist? If we were close enough, you could probably touch me, right? You could probably touch me, right? Yeah. If I have not showered in 4 weeks, you could smell me, right? We could smell me, right? I'm not going with the fifth sense. No, let's not go there. No, go there. We're not going with the fifth sense. But you see, the only way that you really know that I exist is through your 5 senses, right? That's the only way you know. That's the only way you can tell, right? Now, I'm not going to have an argument with you about the sixth sense, nonsense, or the sense of humor, right? The 5 scientific senses, right? But here's the thing. And so, Joanna, this is not the side of your head. I'm sorry, I really didn't. But imagine this is the side of your head, right? The only way that you know that I exist, external experience exists, yeah? Okay. The only way you know it exists is it goes through your 5 senses. Now, folks, if you think about it for a moment, information scientists estimate that at any point in time, 2 billion bits of information bombard your nervous system at any point in time, right? I don't know how they get the number 2 billion. Somebody sits there and counts, right? But psychologists say, and there's a paper written in 1956 by a psychologist named George Miller. He says, our conscious attention span can only manage 7 plus or minus 2 bits of information at any one point. That's 5 to 9. Now, I know that you know people that some of us can take 11 plus or minus 2, and some of us take 1 plus or minus 2, depending on, how early in the morning it is, whether we've had coffee or not. But just imagine for a moment, 2 billion bits of information, consciously 7 plus or minus 2. The psychologists go on to say that if you became consciously aware of all the information that's available to you, to your nervous system, you would go crazy, right? So logically, in order for you to remain sane, your nervous system has to have a way of getting rid of information that's not relevant to you at this point in time. I'll prove it to you. As you're sitting there, listening to my voice, some of you are writing notes, some of you are thinking what I'm going to have for dinner. You're probably not aware of the feeling in your left toe until now. Now that you're aware of the feeling in your left toe, I hope it's comfortable, I hope it's not too warm, it's not too moist, okay? But your left toe has always been there. But because it was not relevant information to you at that point, it got filtered out. Does that make sense, folks? Yeah? So as information goes into your senses, it gets filtered out. It's necessary, can't be helped, right? And then it becomes what we refer to as an internal representation. Some of you can call it a memory, some can call it a experience, doesn't matter, right? And here's the funny thing, right? So one of the things we can say is this is a map of reality. But if you think about it, it is a map of reality that is quite impoverished. Why? Because it's really a lot of information filtered out. This explains why 2 people can go to the same event and they will leave having very different memories of event. I don't know if you've ever had that experience. Yeah. Now here's the other thing. When you have that memory and you use words to express, how many people in this room have had this experience? You want to express something that you feel or you have experienced, but you can't find the words to say it. Anyone? Yeah? It's tough, isn't it? Right? Because the feeling is so huge, but the words fail you, right? And so, by definition, what's inside your head has to get filtered before your words come out, right? So, if this is a map of reality, then this is a map of reality. right? And this is where a lot of problems occur. Because it leads to what we refer to as bias. So we go back to martial arts for a moment, okay? Let's say I'm a boy called Billy, right? And I want to feel good about myself. And I think the world is made up of, bad people, nasty people. Okay, I want to use the A word, but I won't. Okay, so they are all not so nice, right? Okay. So I go and learn martial arts. I go and learn something. So I do a few things, all good, right? And then I go out into the world. Now, here's the problem. In psychology, and those of you in the psychology, you'll be familiar with this, there is a term, a phrase that we sometimes use we call perception is projection. Right, you guys heard this? Yeah? It's kind of strange. How it works is what we perceive in the world is actually what we see the world as. It's kind of like we put these lenses, right? And the filters that we have cause causes that. This perception is projection. Now, the funny thing about this perception is projection is this. If I'm feeling insecure about the world, and I think the world is made up of nasty people, right? When I go out into the world, what am I likely to see? Nasty people, right? Why am I likely to see nasty people? Because I'm projecting that, right? Okay. Now, what happens if I manage to run into this lady over here who is actually the sweetest, nicest human being on this planet? Will Billy see her as the nicest, sweetest human being on this planet? Probably not. Why not? Because I'm projecting, right? And so any data that is contrary to what my perception is, I will delete. In psychology, we know this as confirmation bias. Yes? 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 Now here's the weirdest thing of all. And this is the strange part about it. If I perceive this lady over here, hi, I'm sorry, keep calling you this lady. What's your name, ma'am? Percy? Percy. If I perceive Percy as a mean person, right? And I interpret all her actions by that filter, then how do you think I will behave? I'll behave in a way that protects myself against her, right? That makes sense. Okay? But that may mean that I start acting like a mean person. Now, if I act like a mean person, I go up to Percy, and Percy is thinking, Percy probably doesn't realize I'm going to come into the audience, yeah, and Percy is thinking, you know that one over there, that guy over there? I'm a nice person. I'm being nice to him, and he's still acting like a mean person. So what do I have to do to protect myself? I got to be mean, right? I got to be a little bit firmer, right? And this is the problem, because Billy then sees the mean thing and says, see, the world is like that. Yeah? And it reaffirms and reinforces those filters. Right? And we call that, of course, the self-fulfilling prophecy. Right? So we often engage in behaviors and words that actually lead us to what we are most fearful of. Yeah? One of my favorite movie characters is Kung Fu Panda. Do you guys know who Kung Fu Panda is? Po, yeah, Po. I don't know what the Cantonese term for Kung Fu Panda is, but Kung Fu Panda. And there's the wonderful saying from Kung Fu Panda 1. The saying is, a man often finds his destiny on the road he takes to avoid it. Okay? And it's a lot like when you expect it, you create that reality. Right? Now, and this takes us really to the first useful takeaway as a mediator, right? Because a lot of the time, and what we call this is, folks, for those of you who are interested, this comes from a field called neuro-linguistic programming, NLP. Anyone in this room knows NLP? Some of you do. This gentleman does. Okay, so. Put very simply, NLP is the study of human communication, the structure of human communication. And the idea is that if we understand how humans structure information in their head, we can restructure it in more useful sorts of ways. Right? That's the main idea. Right? So if we think about this, for a moment. I'd like to just share with you 5 types of statements that you might encounter in a mediation that stems from perception, that stems from these sort of mindsets that you might find useful to think about. The first are what we call mind reads, right? So, ladies and gentlemen, that's TK over there. TK, can you just wave your hand for a moment, just let people know? And he's really bored right now. I'm telling you, he's really bored right now. And this lady, hi, you are, ma'am? Zoe thinks this is all bullshit. Oh, did I say that on the camera? I'm sorry. This is all nonsense. Okay. All right. Okay. And this gentleman here is thinking, I've just wasted my Thursday evening. Right. Now, ladies and gentlemen, do I know whether they actually think this or not? We don't. Honestly, it could be true. I hope not. Right? But at the end of the day, you hear this in mediation. For example, you will hear someone say, he doesn't respect me. He doesn't care about the family. He doesn't intend to keep to the deal. Right? These are what we call mind reads. Right? And it's as if I know what you're thinking, actually I don't know what you're thinking. Right? And this is part of what we call the attribution bias. This is the projection. Right? One of the things that we are sometimes trained to do in mediations, when we say, he doesn't respect you, what do we normally say? We say sometimes, oh, he doesn't respect you, okay, well, we'll find ways for him to respect you. Or he doesn't respect you, tell me how he doesn't respect you, and so on and so forth, right? We dig down. One of the things we suggest to you as part of this model is to say, ask yourself, how do you know? How do you know he doesn't respect you? We are asking the questions that take people down what we call the ladder of inference, right? Some of you will be familiar with that concept. Trying to get evidence for the conclusions they have made. Yeah? All right? So if you are faced with a mind read, one of the questions you ask is, how do you know? How do you know? It's as simple as that. Of course, you have to do this with mediator skills. So you don't say, how do you know? You say, for example, I understand you feel he doesn't respect you. Could you help me understand how you came to that conclusion? What did you see? What experiences did you have that gave you that impression? Do you see how that works? I mean, most of us as mediators, we know how to do that, right? Okay, but you have to have a softening frame. Because if she says, can you say to me, he doesn't respect me? Can you say that? How you know? Okay, instant break of rapport. Okay, complain to Hong Kong mom. Just kidding, just kidding. But you know what I'm saying. We need to have that softening frame. The second thing is value judgments, right? Folks, I don't know if you those mediators in the room hear value judgments in the stuff that you do. I hear value judgments all the time, right? And value judgments, for example, might be, a good mother doesn't take her child to McDonald's. Right? Now it can be anything else. A good partner doesn't steal money from the business, for example. Right? Okay. And one of the things we say is, okay, there's a value judgment there, it could be true. But one of the things you might want to ask is, well, according to who? Because we're not disputing that maybe McDonald's food isn't the best food, maybe. Okay, but what we're trying to figure out is if we say a good mother doesn't take a child to McDonald's, you want to know, okay, whose standard are you measuring that by? Now, you may be sitting there saying to yourself, no, the person just said it, therefore it's their standard. Okay, but surprisingly, a lot of the things that we believe, a lot of the values that we have in the world aren't our own. They get installed in us at a very young age, generally by parents. Right, and so, for example, I have a personal one of these, right, and it's like it's bad to be careless, right, and unfortunately, because I've lived with that all my life, I'm a perfectionist, which means I always miss deadlines because I'm always trying to get it perfect, right, And someone once asked me, according to whom? And I said, according to me, of course. Then I paused for a moment and I said, hang on a moment. According to my dad. Because I remember at a very, very young age, I was not careful with my work and my dad just rammed that into my head, right? So, important for you to identify it, because if they then identify who says that statement or who makes the value statement, you might be able to help them construct another way to think about the problem, right? Third one are what we call linkages. And if you pardon me, I'm just going to write this down for a moment. They say that the human brain is associative, which means that we're metaphorical. We tell things. So essentially, if there are two items in the world, our brain tries to draw a linkage, tries to draw a connection, right? Now the connection could be what we call a cause and effect, which means that X leads to Y, right? Or it can be what we call an equivalence, X equals Y, right? So I might say, for example, the fact that you came to this talk, okay, makes it very likely that you will gain a lot from it, right? Okay, that's what we call cause effect. Maybe true, may not be true, but our brain goes, yeah, okay, right? The fact that Johannes is looking at me like that means that I can put whatever. I don't want to say what it means. I can say whatever it is. Thank you, Johannes, for letting me sort of use you as a foil. But the kind of thing you might hear in a mediation is, I can't trust him because he is always late. Okay? If you break it down, X linked to late, right? Now, when you have that kind of a belief, when you have that kind of a problem, the difficulty is trying to argue about that, saying that, no lah, you can trust him lah. Okay? It might work, but it doesn't always work, right? Because you're going up against that belief. So one of the things we say is, okay, I understand you feel you cannot trust him because he's always late. Can you help me understand, how does being late affect whether you can trust him or not? How does his lateness affect trust? Right? You're trying to, once you identify a linkage, you're trying to break that linkage. Okay? But you're trying to question the linkage again very gently, right? In a mediator fashion. Okay? Don't do it sort of, why? Okay, so that would be bad. Abstract nouns. I'm going to do this to Zoe, could I tease you for a moment? Is that all right? Okay, I'll tease you for a moment. Okay, I'm going to say, ladies and gentlemen, I'll ask you this question. I'm going to ask Zoe two things. I'm going to say two statements to Zoe. You tell me what the difference is, okay? Zoe, our relationship is not working out. Okay, that's the first statement. Okay? Okay. You can see Hilda. Hilda's eyes are saying, you bastard. Okay. Now, Zoe, this is the second statement. Zoe, the way we are relating is not working out. Right? Folks, what's the difference between those two sentences? Anyone? How many of you feel that there is a difference? Okay, okay. How many of you feel that the first statement feels stuck? How many of you feel that the second statement has movement? Right. And as mediators, we live for this, right? As mediators, we're always looking for, if you have a stuck state, you try to move them. You try to give them some movement, right? That's what we're trying to do all of the time, right? This is what we call abstract nouns. Now, we all know what a noun is. A noun is an object, a naming word. So a pen is a noun, right? Microphone is a noun. A room is a noun. These are all what we call concrete nouns. They're all nouns that we physically exist. Abstract nouns don't physically exist. So for example, a word like love, that's a noun, but it doesn't physically exist in the world, right? I can't hold it in the palm of my hand, it doesn't exist. Success is a noun, but you can't hold a pound of success in your hand, it doesn't work that way, right? Relationship is a noun. So what an abstract noun actually is a process that has had the head and the tail cut off and concretize over time. So for example, the process of relationship or process of a relationship is actually the process of relating. Communication is the process of communicating. Success is the process of, you could say successing, but it sounds really strange and people look at you funny. Being successful, finding ways to be successful, right? Okay. So, by the way, let me try this one. If I was the party and you were a mediator, I said to you, mediator, Mr. Mediator, Madam Mediator, I have a problem. Is problem an abstract noun? Yes. So what is a problem? A problem is the process of creating a problem and to continue to perpetuate the problem. Now, why is it important to what, and what I've just done, we call denominalization. So the example I was slightly different, our communication is broken down. One of the questions you ask is, if someone says to you, our relationship is broken down, our communication is broken down, one of the things you ask is, okay, I understand that you feel that way. How would you like to be relating? Or how would you like to be communicating? So in other words, if you change the noun back to a process, it doesn't just allow you movement, it allows the party movement in their mind. Yeah. The last one is what we will refer to as a limitation. Most easily said, I can't or I won't. Right? Words like can't and won't, or I don't think I can. These are all words that tell you, they draw a box. They tell you what the limitation is. Right? And one of the things I invite you to say, because you see, if someone says to you, I can't say yes to this, most of the time we will go, why? Or we accept it at face value and then we go, okay, let's look at another option, right? But one of the things I'd invite you to ask is this. I understand you can't say yes to the deal. What would happen if you did? Or what would happen if you didn't? Or what wouldn't happen if you did? Or what wouldn't happen if you didn't? Now, I'm not asking you to say those 4 things to them, but what I'm saying to you is, if they say, I can't do something, you go, what would happen if you did? It actually, firstly, gets them to consider the possibility. And then if you ask them, what would happen if you didn't? They will say, well, if I didn't say yes to this, I would be able to, and then they'll tell you a bunch of different things, which may actually be interests that never came out in the first place. Right? So the what would happen questions help you flush interest out. Does that make sense, folks? Yes? Yes? Yeah? Okay. So these are 5 examples of the meta model. We're running a workshop tomorrow. I think Wendy will tell you a little bit more about it. It's sort of more on communication in general, and it's targeted at different levels. But one of the things that we are likely to be talking about is a little bit more about the meta model. So Wendy can provide you more information about that. So that was a little bit of a segue into the meta model, right? I want to ask you all a question, folks. I'm going to say something to Jay. Jay, I'm sorry. I apologize in advance. Folks, all you got to do is just watch, okay? Pretend I'm Jay's boss. Pretend I'm Jay's boss. Jay, you know that the report you did for me last week. I just want to say good job. Okay, now Jay, you don't have to do anything. It's all cool. You relax. How many of you believe me? Oh, what? Seriously? But my words were complimentary. Nobody? How many of you don't believe me? Thanks a lot, you guys. Now, why? Why? I mean, fair enough, you don't believe me. I don't think she believed me either, right? But why didn't you believe me? I've got terrible facial. It's the only face I've got. No, but you're right. My facial expression was left a lot to be desired. What else? Nice, right? There was a conflict between my words and my facial expression, right? In communication terms, there was incongruence, right? In communication terms, incongruence. We all know, for example, body language is a very large percentage of the communication package. But at end, if there's a conflict between your body language and words, people will tend to believe your body language. Yeah. In martial arts, we talk about it in a slightly different way. The first concept that we talk about is the 6 harmonies, Lok-hap, okay, Liu He, right? This is not to be confused with a martial art called Liu He Qian. Okay, there is Lok-hap Kin. That's not what we're talking about. And for us, what we're talking, how many of you here know Bruce Lee? Do you guys know Bruce Lee? Bruce Lee? Of course you know Bruce Lee, and that's a stupid question. Of course you know Bruce Lee, right? And you know Bruce Lee's 1-inch punch? Have you heard about his 1-inch punch? Yeah? And you've seen the video where he stand there and then one guy hold the pad and then the guy fly? Yeah? That is an example of Lok-hap. And what we mean by Lok-hap is this. In order for him to generate that kind of power, what we call chun geng, okay? Did I say that in Cantonese or Mandarin? Chun geng is Cantonese, right? I did say that, right? Is actually the 6 joints need to work in harmony. 1, 2, if I get this right, 3, 4, 5, 6. And when the 6 joints work in harmony, it doesn't mean they work at the same time, but they work at the correct time. Tremendous power can be generated. And for me, in martial arts, this is the metaphor of congruence. Right? They did a study, this was some years ago. They took videos of people walking down the street. This was in America. And then they showed the videos to people who were actually in jail for mugging. These are people who mug people for, I guess, for a living, if you think about it. And they said, okay, you tell me which of these people you would mug, because they wanted to know, what was it? And they generally mugged the people where their body language was incongruent. Right? So if Joanna's was going to be a sort of bullying me in a bar, I said, Joanna's, I'm a martial artist. What's he going to say? If he's a bad, evil person, he's going to say, ha 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 ha, I'm going to bully you. Right? But if you tell someone, stop, I don't want any trouble, okay, let me buy you a drink. Right? It's a different communication. We know as mediators, we need to be congruent in our communication. Lok-hap is one of those ideas. The other thing that we want to do is I'll demonstrate this. Jay, can you pretend that you have a problem and you're telling me about a problem? Is that all right? Just pretend. Make something up. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah. And now, so was I a good listener? No, I was a sucky listener, right? I was such a horrible, bad listener, right? And this is where we say, and all of us as mediators have done the training. We go active listening. We're supposed to have attending words and attending postures. So, uh-huh. 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 And then, oh, wait, there's this thing we call paraphrasing, parrot phrasing. So what you're saying is you have a problem. Uh-huh. And what you're saying is you have a boyfriend. Uh-huh. And what you're saying is that you have a problem with your boyfriend. Uh-huh. Right. Now, maybe I am repeating it correctly, but you know what? As a person talking to me right now, what's she feeling? She's feeling pretty annoyed. She's feeling pretty annoyed, right? And so one of the things we want to say then is, as you communicate, you must have form, which is the behaviors you engage in. But if you don't have intent, if you have, I'm going to say Mandarin because I'm afraid I can't say, I don't know how to say it in Cantonese. If you have sing, but you don't have yi, you won't be able to, right? Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. So for us, that's really the notion of congruence. I want to share with you a very quick story of a friend. He had a very precious bowl. And one day he came home and he found this. He was kind of upset with his son, right? And he had just attended a mediation workshop and it was all about maintaining balance. And he found that kind of hard to do, and we know why, right? And you see, the reason is we have a brain, Yes, we do. We may wonder whether certain politicians in the US might, but we have a brain, and this is how it works. My technology fails me. You see this red thing there? It's called the amygdala, or amygdala. It's not the character from Star Wars. So the amygdala, and this sometimes causes what we call a amygdala hijack. It hijacks your brain. So this is how it works. Check this out. So if you were in the savannah and you saw this coming at you, what's the first thing that would come into your mind? Right. Okay. I mean, apart from saying "oh shit," right? You say, okay, right? You either gonna run, or you're gonna pick up a rock, prepare to do battle, or you freeze. Now, freezing doesn't always work, right? Historically, the reason why we freeze is because predators sought for movement. Okay. Now, so the amygdala controls that. You fight, flight, or freeze, right? And well, shit. And what happens is when that happens, we are unable to process rationally. Now, the funny thing is, it's fine if a saber-toothed tiger is coming at you, right? That is not the time to be saying, there's a saber-toothed tiger coming at me. He looks very hungry. Should I, A, run, B, fight? Or you don't do that. You know why? If your ancestor did that, you would not be here today because your ancestors would have been lunch, right? Okay. But here's the problem. In today's modern world, this still happens to us. When we have a confrontation, whether it's in a mediation or whether it's in a negotiation or whether your boss has just said something nasty to you, our body reacts the same way as if there was a saber-toothed tiger. It's part of our primitive conditioning. We can't help that. Okay? And so one of the key things, and this is where we say mindfulness comes in, is that we need to maintain balance. And how do we do this? There are three types of balance. The first is what we refer to as physical balance. Most of us understand this. Most of us, if for example, you trip, or you're on an MTR in Hong Kong, and the thing comes to a sudden stop, you're off balance. It's very hard to be rational when you're off balance. Your body quickly tries to seek balance, or you fall, right? So physical balance is important. We'll talk a little bit about that. The second is what we call emotional balance. Right, it's easiest if I have to pick on TK because TK, could you come up for here from? Would you mind? And so TK, I want you to. You have a number of friends in the room, right? And so I'd like you to pick a friend. Pick any friend. Pick a friend. Samuel. Okay, hi, Samuel. Hi, Samuel. TK is going to try to say something to you. He's trying to explain something to you, right? Explain to him, I don't know, quantum physics. No, explain to him the difference between interest and positions. How's that? Interest and positions, Ken? Right? Okay, so are you ready? Ready? Okay, go ahead. Explain it.
Okay, interest behind.
Go ahead. Go on. Right. Right, okay, thank you very much. Now, apart from you seeing me assaulting TK, that wasn't my intention. But one of the problems is that, and those of you who've experienced earthquakes, if you've lived in a country with earthquakes like Japan, New Zealand, where I've lived there for a little while, you know the effect. When your balance is being shifted, it's actually hard to think. Now, that was a physical example of a quake. But when you're talking about emotional quake, we're talking about things like what we call an identity quake. Right? How many of you have ever had this experience? You can't actually think hard enough about the things that you need to do because inside your head, you're questioning your competence, or you're questioning whether you're doing the right thing, and there's this voice inside your head that gets louder and louder and louder and louder. Right? Now, some of you are sitting there going, "I don't have a voice in my head." That's the voice, right? Okay. So you need to get that balance. The third one is what we call perceptual balance. Perceptual balance is being able to see things from three different perceptual positions, right? From self, from other, and from objective third party. But when you can do these three balances, then you have what we refer to as self-mastery, right? Where you can be mindful about the things that you do. But don't worry, there are tricks, there are techniques that we can use. And I just want to very quickly highlight to you three techniques. If anyone is interested in that last one, we might do a little bit of that tomorrow. We'll see how it goes. But physical grounding is about centering, right? The martial arts have all different ways of describing it. The Dantian or the Qi Hai. The Japanese would call it the Hara, right? They would say that if you are centered, you can be assertive without being aggressive. But if you are uncentered, you lose your center, you become aggressive. They will say, for example, that if you are centered, you can be objective. But if you're uncentered, you become disassociated, right? And so there are valuable bits to being centered or not centered. As a martial artist, you have to always be centered, even when moving, right? Because if you're not centered when you're moving, sorry, that was a bad example, bad joke. You need to be centered, right? Now that's physical grounding. Then there's deep breathing. Deep breathing is interesting because most of us as adults, we breathe up here in what we call the upper third of our chest. Those of us, unfortunately, who are old enough to have to take medical physicals over time, you know there's this test where they make you blow into a tube. That's to test how much lung capacity you have, right? Because one of the signs of biological aging is the inability to use all of your chest. So the relaxation response is about breathing, sinking it down to your tummy, what they call diaphragmatic breathing. Those of you who do yoga, qigong, are familiar with this. Heikong, sorry, and it's based on a medical. It's actually based on medical science. It's what we call the relaxation response. It was documented by Dr. Herbert Benson, I think, in the 70s. There is actually a book called The Relaxation Response. You might want to look at that. Okay, the last one, and this is interesting for most people. We call that peripheral vision. Peripheral vision requires a little bit of explanation. We have two different kinds of cells in our eyes. One are called rods, one are called cones. And one type of cell engages in what we call foveal vision. It means detail. If I read, if I'm looking at that word reserved seat, I need foveal vision, I need detail, right? If you actually want to look for movement or the bigger picture, you actually go into what we call peripheral vision. In other words, you're sorting for movement. Right, so as I'm looking at you right now, I can see a hand moving right there, and another hand there, a couple of hands there, because everyone's now waving their hands just to see whether I can see them or not, right? But the idea then is that when you go into peripheral vision, and we teach this to people who actually engage in trainings, and they get nervous about trainings, it activates what we call the sympathetic nervous system. It depotentiates negative emotions, right? And it's one of the things that we sometimes teach, where we want to teach people to be mindful, to actually see relationships between things rather than just being focused on one thing. So far we talked about maintaining balance. I want to very, very quickly talk a little bit about, I'm going to say that in Mandarin again because my Cantonese is very bad. 以柔克刚. And the idea of overcoming hardness with softness, right? And there are 4 principles there that I just want to quickly demonstrate. Samuel, would you mind, because you look like a big, strong, and friendly person, would you mind coming up for a moment? Is that all right? Yeah, that's you. Is that okay? Folks, just give him a round of applause because he looks very doubtful. Hi, Samuel. How heavy are you? What's... Oh, that's a secret, right? Okay, come on here. Perfect. That's a good answer. That's the perfect answer for that. That's a secret. So we're going to do a few things together, right? You guys just sort of observe, right? Okay. Put up your hands. Not like that, no. Okay. So just here. Put one leg in front of the other. Yeah, sure. Can I? Sure. Okay, so that's just stay here for a moment. It's fine. Don't worry about it. It's all cool. It's cool. We're now stars. It's all right. Now, so folks, here's what did you just see? You just saw Samuel bullying me, right? You just saw Samuel bullying me, right? Because he was just pushing me around. You notice I was falling back, and he was just looking all this. And can I push you? But actually, he was pushing, right? Right? Now, I'm just kidding, Samuel. Now, a couple of things. It's a natural human instinct. If someone pushes you, you push back. It's so hardwired in us, right? Second thing you notice is, does anyone know who started it? Me or Samuel? Oi. Thanks a lot, you guys. First with her, now with him. Well, but after a while, what you would have also noticed that it didn't matter who started it. Both of us were escalating it. And this is the nature of conflict, right? After a while, it really doesn't matter who started it. All we know is they're fighting, and if we don't do something about it, they'll keep fighting. Yeah? Okay. And so one of the things, don't worry, it's all good, please, I'll still need you. One of the things we say, let go of strength. We let go of our own ego. We let go of their ego, let go of their strength. Right? I have no control over him. I can't say to him, he needs to, right? But a lot of the time we think strength is power. Right? We think strength is power. And so here's the thing. Could you do me a favor? Could you grip my hand? Just grab my hand. Just grip it. No, just grip the wrist. Yep. Okay, not break it. No, not break it. I need my hand. Okay, grip it as tight as you can. Right, use your right hand. Right, okay, grip as tight as you can. That's good. That's cool, right? That's cool, right? I'm looking at your face. You look strained. That's okay. Now, so usually when he's strong, he's being strong right now. He's gripping my hand. I can't feel my fingers, right? So a lot of the time, he will say he's in control. He's got power, right? Here's the funny thing. In martial arts, we say actually by being strong or by relying on force, he has given me power, right? Because I get to move him around. Don't worry about it. It's all cool. Wow. Right? No, don't worry. It's all cool. I'm a man of peace. Right? And so one of the things is we sometimes say you receive what is coming, okay, before you redirect it. Right? How do we receive as mediators what is coming? We listen. We empathize. We really listen with E. You sing, you E, as opposed to right? And then we redirect. So for example, put up your hands again. If we had two hands up and we were pushing each other, the Aikido-kers, the people who do Aikido, and those of you who know the character for Aikido, Hapkedo, it basically means the way of harmonizing energy, right? So if, for example, could you form a face? Yeah. If he was going to hit me like, if he was going to hit me like that, that's right, he's going, thumbs up. Okay, if he's going to hit me like that, right? If I was from a hard martial art, what I will do is I will either stand there and go, ooh, right? Or I would try to do, right? But if I was in Aikido, if I was in a soft martial art, what I would do is actually, I would do two things. I would receive what is coming and then I would redirect and utilize. So for example, if he was punching, I'd say, oh, okay. You're looking at something over there, that's really interesting. I see what you're seeing. What I want to show you was this over there. Can you see that? Right? Right? So in essence, we do that. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Give him a round of applause. Brave man. He's a brave man. But essentially what we're trying to do is to let it come in, not have to fight it, move to the side, ride the force, and then redirect it somewhere more useful. Right? So if someone is shouting you, someone is positional with you, you don't go positional back. You go, okay, I hear you. I understand you want whatever you want. Help me understand what's important to you about that. And what that does is redirect them to what we refer to as the circle, talking about interests. Or help me understand that as an option, what does that option do for you? Or help me understand how you came to that option, how you derived that option as ways of bringing them to the circle, right? And you're simply redirecting and utilizing. Now, the one thing that's particularly important, most of us don't actually think about, as mediators, we're very outcome focused. Right? Outcome focused doesn't mean settlement, but we are very outcome focused in saying we're trying to help you explore ways to solve your problem. Right? And in martial arts, we are too. My outcome is to actually to dissolve whatever he's coming at me and to do whatever I need to do, right? In Aikido, it's to a throw. Right? In Wing Chun, it may be to hit him. In Karate, definitely to hit him. Right? But at the end of the day, we're very outcome and future focused. Right? So the simplest way to describe this is in this saying by a gentleman that is no longer with us for many years now. Okay, but this is summed up even more by another philosopher whom you all will know. Right? because a lot of the time that's what we're trying to achieve. That's what we're trying to achieve. All right. The time is upon us. The time is upon us, and I see Wendy sort of stressing that we might not even have time for questions. But I want to just very quickly say a word about metaphors. Ladies and gentlemen, have I been using metaphors in this talk? I don't think so. I mean, yeah, there was a camel story, but right. Okay. There are a number of different ways, and this is sort of like some of the reasons why we do metaphors, because of the frame of mind, or we can communicate with the unconscious. But what's helpful is the notion that you can use metaphors to convey an idea. Okay, one of my favorite metaphors to convey an idea is this. A mediator uses this. You know, at the end of a chess game, the king and the pawn go back into the same box. Right. This was contributed to me by an Indian mediator who said the moment he said that, the parties went, yeah, okay. Right. It allows you to have a strategy, to suggest a certain type of strategy, and to create an aha experience. There are things what we call physical metaphors. So Samuel, for example, you actually assisted me with a couple of physical metaphors, right? It's an experience that you let people engage in that suddenly goes, aha, that's a physical metaphor, right? Particularly helpful in training. My friend wasn't really happy with his son. Hard to maintain balance. Until he met his neighbor, who was a Japanese gentleman, an old Japanese gentleman. Old Japanese gentleman said, listen, don't worry about it. There is a Japanese art called kintsugi. I'm probably mispronouncing it. But it's the process of taking something broken, repairing it with gold, and giving you a repaired item that is not the same as what it was, but something more beautiful. Right. I'd like to close this evening, before we take questions, with this quote. Johannes, could you know that rope that I gave you? Could you throw it over to me? So I'd like to close with the last metaphor. All right. A lot of the time when people fight, it's a little bit like saying, I've got this piece of rope. And it gets sundered in two. As mediators, parties come to us like this. And a lot of the time, we try our best to do this. Not 100% beautiful, but functional. Right? I'd like to salute all of you peacemakers out there for the magic that you do through your words and your interventions. Because when you are excellent in what you do, sometimes even the knot is not a knot. And so, blessed are the peacemakers, and may you continue to make peace. Thank you very much.